The courtroom was heavy with silence, the suffocating kind that weighs on your ribs and turns each breath into effort. Every seat was occupied, every stare drilling into the man at the heart of it all. Sergeant Nathan Carter sat anchored in his wheelchair, his military uniform crisp, the medals on his chest throwing back the fluorescent glare. His knuckles whitened around the leash of the dog beside him, Thor, a German shepherd whose calm eyes missed nothing. To the rest, Thor was just another military working dog. To Nathan, he was the reason his heart still beat. Nathan's jaw locked as the judge's voice cut through the air, warning this was his final chance to speak. The Army's decision stood. Thor would be reassigned, labeled government property, shipped off to another mission. After years of blood and fire shared between them, losing Thor now wasn't just injustice, it was amputation. His fingers trembled against the leash. When he spoke, his voice was sandpaper and steel. "Your Honor," he said, the words scraped raw. "Thor's not just some asset. He saved me in ways no report could ever capture. In the field, he dragged me from kill zones, took bullets meant for me, even sniffed out traps I'd have walked straight into. And when I came home, when I couldn't stand the sight of my own reflection, Thor stayed. He was the reason I didn't let go. Please, don't tear him away from me." The room froze. The air turned to syrup, thick with held breaths. Spectators swiped at tears. Others traded furious whispers, faces twisting between heartbreak and fury. The judge's expression gave nothing away, his gaze pinning Nathan for an eternity before he straightened, lips parting to rule. Then, the impossible. Thor lunged forward, ripping the leash from Nathan's grip. The German shepherd charged the judge's bench, barking, not the mindless noise of an animal, but the razor-sharp alerts Nathan knew too well. Gasps erupted. Bailiffs surged forward, hands on holsters, but Thor didn't snarl, didn't bite. His barks were deliberate, urgent, like he was spelling out a warning only Nathan could decode. "Thor!" Nathan choked out, raw terror in his voice, but beneath it, recognition. He'd seen this before, in the dust of ambushes, in the smoke of blown-out buildings. Thor wasn't just barking, he was alerting. A ripple of murmurs spread through the courtroom. "What's wrong with the dog?" someone hissed from the back. Nathan's chest constricted as he wheeled himself forward, his voice shaking but urgent. "He doesn't bark like this for no reason. He only does it when there's danger. He's trying to warn us." The judge stiffened, his gavel hovering mid-air, his gaze fixed on Thor. The room plunged into silence again, save for the dog's barks, each one sharp, rhythmic, pulsing like a war drum. Whatever Thor sensed, it wasn't just about Nathan. The dog knew something no human could, and for the first time that day, a spark of hope flared in Nathan's chest. This wasn't an ending. Something bigger was coming, and Thor was hell-bent on making them see it. The courtroom held its breath. Only Thor's barks sliced through the tension, relentless, each one ricocheting off the dark-paneled walls like gunfire. His body was coiled low, muscles taut, ears flattened, his stare unbroken, locked onto the judge's bench with predator's focus. Nathan's fingers dug into the wheelchair's armrests as he tracked Thor's movements. This wasn't erratic noise. Every muscle in the dog's body screamed detection. His heart hammered, that old battlefield adrenaline surging through him, absurdly out of place in this sterile courtroom. "Thor, heel!" Nathan commanded, voice steel-wrapped in cotton. Thor flicked a glance backward, just for a second, eyes razor-focused, a silent "trust me." Then he pivoted, pacing precise, measured steps before the judge's bench. His barks dropped into low, vibrating growls that slithered down every spine in the room. The audience's murmurs curdled from sympathy to nervous energy. "Mr. Carter," the judge's voice was a blade on whetstone, "control your dog, or I will." The judge's voice cut through the air, louder now, steadier, though Nathan could feel the fear coiling in his own chest. Thor isn't misbehaving, he insisted. He's trained to detect threats, bombs, explosives, danger. He wouldn't act like this unless... His words hung in the suddenly silent room, transforming skepticism into something darker, heavier. Before anyone could react, Thor's barking ceased. The silence that followed was startling, oppressive. The dog's body locked into perfect stillness, his head whipping toward the courtroom's far end. Ears pricked forward, a deep, warning growl vibrating from his throat. The change was so immediate, so intense, it froze even the judge mid-sentence. Every head turned toward the massive oak doors. A wave of unease crashed over the room, whispers escalating into nervous exchanges. Nathan's breath came short and fast as he tracked Thor's focus, his pulse roaring like artillery fire in his ears. He knew this posture too well, the same lethal focus Thor displayed seconds before uncovering hidden IEDs or enemy positions in the field. Whatever Thor sensed now was bad, really bad. "Thor," Nathan whispered, his voice cracking under the weight of dread. "What? What is it?" The dog didn't flinch. Every muscle remained rigid, his growl deepening, thrumming through the courtroom like live wires. This wasn't just about Nathan anymore. Whatever danger Thor had caught wind of, it threatened everyone in that room. The growl rolled through the space like approaching storm clouds, paralyzing the crowd. All eyes locked onto the German shepherd. Hackles raised, stare drilling into the heavy oak doors at the far end. Even the judge, who'd been ready to silence Nathan moments ago, now looked unsettled. His gavel lay abandoned as he traded wary looks with the bailiffs. The air crackled, thick with unspoken panic. Nathan's chest heaved, his fingers digging into the wheelchair's armrests like they were the only things tethering him to earth. His body braced instinctively, not for a judge's verdict, but for the concussive wave of an IED. He'd seen this too many times before, on battlefields where Thor's instincts had meant the difference between walking away or being carried home in a bag. That low, vibrating growl only ever meant one thing: danger was here. Now, "Stay calm," Nathan whispered to himself, but the words rang hollow. Even his own breath sounded too loud in his ears. The bailiffs hesitated near the judge's bench, uncertain. Finally, the largest one, a broad-shouldered man with wary eyes, stepped forward, his hand hovering near his sidearm. "It's just a dog, right?" he muttered, though his tense shoulders betrayed his doubt. "Probably spooked by the crowd or—" Nathan cut him off, voice sharp enough to slice through the murmurs. "Number Thor doesn't react to noise or crowds like this. He's trained to detect threats, things we can't see." His words landed like bricks in the silent room. "If he's growling like that, listen." For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then the judge, pale but composed, gave a stiff nod to the bailiffs, gesturing toward the ominous doors. Thor's growl intensified as the bailiffs neared the door. The larger man reached out, his fingers tightening around the cold metal handle. For one suspended moment, the entire courtroom seemed to stop breathing. Nathan's heart hammered against his ribs, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring. Thor stood frozen, his growls exploding into staccato barks as the handle turned. The door groaned open, revealing only darkness in the hallway beyond. Empty, at first, but Thor kept barking, his focus laser-locked on something invisible. The bailiff stepped forward, his weapon hand trembling. When he glanced back at the courtroom, his face had gone ashen. Then his voice cut through the silence. "There's something here." Nathan's stomach dropped. He leaned forward in his chair, his chest constricting. Whatever something was, it had triggered Thor's combat instincts. And Nathan knew better than most. Thor didn't give false alarms. The air grew thick, almost suffocating. Thor's barks came rapid fire now, each one ricocheting off the walls. His body stayed locked in combat-ready stance, muscles corded, head lowered, eyes piercing the darkness beyond the door. The bailiff took another shaky step forward, his boots echoing softly. His hand twitched near his weapon, shoulders tense like he expected an attack. From the crowd came a hushed, trembling question. "What's going on?" "Out there," the judge demanded, his voice cracking slightly despite his attempt to maintain authority. He gripped the gavel tightly, his knuckles pale as his eyes darted nervously between the doorway and Thor. The dogs' growls deepened a low, menacing rumble that vibrated through the courtroom and sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. The larger bailiff glanced back toward the room, his face pale and tight with uncertainty. "I don't see anything," he said hesitantly. His words measured, but something doesn't feel right. His gaze shifted back to the hallway, his brow furrowed as if trying to shake off his own doubts. "It's quiet. Too quiet." His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried through the silent room like a gunshot. Nathan leaned forward in his wheelchair, his stomach twisting into knots. He had heard those words before, "too quiet," countless times on the battlefield, and they had always preceded disaster. His voice rose, cutting through the rising murmurs of the crowd. "Thor doesn't react to nothing if he's acting like this. There's a reason we need to evacuate the room now." His command rang with urgency, but the spectators froze. Paralyzed by fear and confusion, the smaller bailiff stepped forward, drawing a flashlight from his belt and aiming the beam into the hallway. The bright light cut through the shadows, illuminating the length of the polished floor. "Out there?" the judge demanded, his voice fracturing slightly despite his iron grip on the gavel. His whitened knuckles and darting eyes betrayed his fraying composure as he looked between Thor and the ominous doorway. The German shepherd's growls dropped into something primal, a vibration that seemed to crawl up everyone's spines. The larger bailiff turned back toward the courtroom, his face bloodless. "I don't see anything," he reported carefully, though his stance screamed otherwise. His eyes kept flicking to the hallway, his whisper cutting through the silence like a blade. "It's too quiet. Wrong quiet." Nathan's gut clenched. He'd heard that exact phrase 100 times before firefights erupted. His wheelchair creaked as he leaned forward. "Thor doesn't react to nothing?" His voice sliced through the murmuring crowd. "If he's like this, there's a threat. Evacuate, now!" The spectators became statues, fear glued to their seats. Then movement. The smaller bailiff unclipped a flashlight. Its beam slashed through the darkness, revealing only empty hallway, the polished floor gleaming back at them. "There's nothing," the bailiff muttered, though his shaking hand betrayed him. The flashlight beam wavered across empty hallway tiles, but Thor exploded into frenzy, growls turning to savage barks, his 90-pound body surging forward with such force the leash nearly tore from Nathan's grip. Then, clang. A metallic crash ripped through the silence. The bailiff stumbled back, flashlight beam jerking wildly. Thor launched toward the sound, nails gouging the courtroom floor as he fought his restraint. Gasps became screams. The larger bailiff's service weapon cleared its holster. "What the hell was that?" Nathan's pulse roared in his ears. "Get Thor back!" His shout cut through the chaos. "He's never wrong!" Clang, clang. Closer now. The air itself seemed to vibrate with threat. No longer if, only when. Then, a third impact, so close the doorframe rattled. Thor's barks turned feral, his entire body a taut spring ready to unleash. The courtroom's fear became a living thing, thick enough to choke on. Whatever lurked in that hallway wasn't hiding anymore. "Nothing here," the bailiff muttered, his voice tight with forced calm even as his trembling hands betrayed him. The flashlight beam swept across empty walls, just an ordinary hallway. But Thor knew better. The dog's growls escalated into savage barks, his powerful body surging forward with such force the leash nearly ripped from Nathan's grip. Then, clang! A metallic crash shattered the silence. The bailiff jerked backward, flashlight beam dancing wildly across the ceiling as Thor erupted into frenzy, claws scrambling against polished floors, barking like the gates of hell had burst open. Gasps turned to shouts as panic spread through the courtroom. The second bailiff drew his weapon, voice cracking. "What the hell was that? Get Thor back!" Nathan's command cut through the chaos, raw with certainty. "He's never wrong!" Clang, clang. Closer this time. The air itself seemed to vibrate with threat. No longer if, only when. Then, a third impact, so close the walls shuddered. Thor's barks turned feral, his entire body a coiled spring aimed at the doorway. The unseen danger wasn't lurking anymore, it was coming. Nathan's knuckles whitened around the leash, his pulse hammering like a drumroll of doom. The air itself felt charged. Something was coming. Something wrong. The lead bailiff moved deeper into the hallway, service weapon drawn, scanning the shadowy corridor. His partner followed, the unsteady flashlight beam slicing through darkness to reveal nothing. Just empty silence. Yet Thor's warnings escalated, growls deepening into something primal, something that set Nathan's combat instincts ablaze. He wanted to scream for evacuation, but the room had frozen in terror. "Do you see anything?" The judge's voice cracked across the courtroom, his gavel shaking in a hand that had lost all authority. The bailiff glanced back, face slick with sweat. "Nothing yet," he whispered, as if volume might trigger an attack. "But it doesn't feel right." His next step echoed like a death knell. Spectators clutched bags and loved ones, some edging toward exits. Nathan wheeled forward, eyes locked on Thor, now eerily silent, ears pricked, body rigid as a statue. "He's locked onto something," Nathan breathed. A flicker of shadow at the hallway's midpoint. The second bailiff reeled back, flashlight beam jagging across walls. "There!" he screamed. His partner's gun snapped up, aimed at the writhing dark. Thor exploded into frenzied barking, lunging with such force the leash nearly tore from Nathan's grasp. "Back up!" Nathan roared, his voice cutting through the courtroom's rising panic. "Get out of there, now!" The judge's gavel came down hard, its sharp crack drowned by the wave of chaos. Spectators surged to their feet, murmurs becoming shouts, fear becoming frenzy. Then, thud! A single deliberate footstep echoed from the hallway, not rushed, not frantic, confident. Thor's barks twisted into a vicious snarl, his powerful body straining forward, teeth bared. Nathan's chest constricted as icy realization hit. Whatever lurked in that darkness wasn't hiding. It wasn't stalking. It was marching toward them. Another thud, louder now, vibrating through the floorboards. Thor fought his leash like a wild thing, forcing Nathan to brace his wheelchair to avoid being dragged. The air turned to lead, every terrified gaze locked on that black maw of a hallway. "Remain calm." The judge's order dissolved into the chaos as people clutched at belongings, chairs, each other, as if mere objects could ward off the approaching horror. The lead bailiff stood paralyzed, service weapon trembling as it pointed at nothing. His partner's flashlight jerked across walls, illuminating only dancing shadows. Nathan's voice sliced through again. "Move! Get clear! Move!" Nathan's command sliced through the chaos. "It's not safe!" His warning hung in the air, sharp, urgent, ignored. The lead bailiff stood rooted, squinting down the shadowed corridor. Then, movement, unmistakable this time, deliberate, purposeful. The second bailiff's gasp cut through the silence. His flashlight trembled, the beam catching, just for a heartbeat, a towering silhouette. There one moment, gone the next, melting back into the dark like smoke. "Show yourself!" The bailiff's order rang out, weapon steady. Only silence answered, thick, smothering silence broken by Thor's frenzied barks. The dog's muscles coiled, teeth bared, a live wire of tension. Then, a figure materialized at the light's edge, hooded, hands in pockets, moving with eerie calm. He paused just beyond the flashlight's reach, head cocked slightly, amused. Thor's growls turned savage, nails scoring the floor as Nathan fought to restrain him. "Identify yourself!" The bailiff's gun didn't waver. The stranger didn't flinch. When he finally spoke, the figure took another deliberate step forward. A ghost of a smile flickered beneath his hood, there, then gone. Nathan's breath hitched as primal dread coiled in his gut. This wasn't just danger. This was something unnatural. The man raised his palms in mock surrender. Both bailiffs jerked their weapons higher, fingers whitening on triggers. "Relax." His voice oozed like oil, smooth, cold, wrong. "No one needs to get hurt." The words hung in the air, turning the courtroom to ice. Nathan knew a lie when he heard one. So did Thor, whose ceaseless growls vibrated through the frozen silence. The bailiff's trained hands shook. Nathan's pulse thundered as he studied the stranger, that predator's poise, the way he reveled in their fear. Step forward, slowly. The bailiff's order cracked at the edges. The hooded head tilted. One measured step. A boot clicked on tile, too loud in the hush. He moved like a man savoring poison. Thor erupted. The German shepherd surged forward, claws screeching against hardwood. Nathan hauled back on the leash, sweat-slick palms burning. "Thor knows," he whispered, voice fraying. "He knows something's wrong." Nathan's whisper barely carried, but the judge caught it, his face twisting in dawning horror. The younger bailiff edged forward, flashlight wavering. "Identify yourself." His voice cracked like thin ice. The hooded man finally looked up. Shadows clung to his face, but his eyes cut through, glacial, calculating. That gaze alone turned Nathan's blood to ice. "I mean no harm," the man repeated. His hollow voice echoed like a gunshot in a tomb. Slowly, he reached into his coat. Both bailiffs jerked their weapons higher. "Hands visible!" A gasp tore through the crowd. Someone whimpered, "He's reaching for something." Nathan's fingers turned to steel around Thor's leash. The dog's snarls vibrated up his arms, a living alarm system. Then, the glint of metal. "Drop it!" the bailiffs roared. The stranger merely smiled, holding up a single key. It caught the light, innocuous. But Thor kept barking. Nathan's stomach dropped. A trick. "It's all wrong." The man's grin widened as if he'd heard the thought. The air turned to lead. That key wasn't a peace offering. It was a taunt. Thor's barks became frenzied. Nathan's hands shook, not from strain, but terrible certainty. This wasn't just a threat. This was predation.
"Drop the key and step back." The lead bailiff's command cut through the courtroom, his weapon unwavering. His partner edged closer, flashlight beam trembling across the man's hooded face. The stranger didn't flinch. His head tilted slightly, those cold eyes locking onto Thor. "Special dog," he mused, voice deceptively light. "Always knows first. That's why they want him." Nathan's blood turned to ice. "How does he know?" The words tore from him. "Who told you about Thor?" Thor lunged against the leash, barking with such fury his whole body shook, as if fighting invisible demons only he could see. The man's smirk deepened. With deliberate slowness, he raised the key. "You'll see." A sharp click echoed through the room. The effect was instantaneous. Thor's barks turned feral. Lights flickered wildly, then died. In the suffocating dark, chaos erupted, screams, scrambling bodies, chairs crashing. When the lights sputtered back to life, the nightmare doubled. Two new figures flanked the stranger, human shapes woven from shadow. Their weapons glinted, cruel, angular metal that needed no introduction. Thor's growls dropped into something primal, a sound that didn't belong in civilization. Nathan's pulse hammered. This wasn't just a threat. It was an operation. The situation had escalated far beyond a man with a key. This was something larger, more dangerous, and it was only beginning. The courtroom dissolved into chaos as spectators rushed for the exits, their panicked voices rising above the screech of overturned chairs. The two figures flanking the stranger advanced, their mere presence sending waves of terror through the crowd. Thor barked incessantly, his body tense and ready to strike, while Nathan's white-knuckled grip on the leash matched the adrenaline coursing through him. One thing was certain, the stranger wasn't bluffing. They wanted Thor. Everyone remained calm. The judge's order was swallowed by the growing panic as he pounded his gavel uselessly. The lead bailiff stood his ground, flashlight beam fixed on the stranger. "Stay where you are," he commanded. The stranger took another deliberate step forward, his calm demeanor unnerving. His companions mirrored his movement, intensifying the suffocating tension. When he spoke, his measured voice cut through the noise, "No one needs to get hurt. I only want the dog." Nathan's blood ran cold. Thor responded with a low, continuous growl, his focus locked on the threat. "You're not taking him," Nathan declared, voice steady despite the emotion threatening to surface. He wheeled closer to Thor, hand firm on the leash. "He's not just a dog, he's my partner. My family. I don't care who you think you are, you're not leaving with him." For a suspended moment, the room held its breath. The stranger's smirk faded, his eyes narrowing as they darted between Nathan and Thor. "You're complicating this unnecessarily," he said coolly, a flicker of frustration breaking through his composure. "He's special. You know that. Keeping him will only bring you trouble." "Thor stays with me," Nathan said firmly. Around them, the crowd's murmurs swelled, some calling for calm, others whispering in fear. The tension became unbearable, each second stretching endlessly until Thor's sharp bark shattered the stillness, his attention never wavering from the stranger. Nathan leaned forward in his chair, ready to fight. Whatever the stranger planned, one thing was certain, Thor wasn't going anywhere. This confrontation was far from over. The courtroom remained frozen in uneasy silence as the stranger stood motionless, his gaze fixed on Thor. The dog's growls rumbled like distant thunder, his body coiled to strike. Nathan kept both hands on the leash, his determination mirroring Thor's loyalty. The two shadowy figures behind the stranger loomed but didn't advance, a tense standoff with no end in sight. Breaking the silence, the judge spoke with forced authority, "You've disrupted court proceedings. This ends now. Bailiffs, remove these men immediately." Though his voice trembled slightly, it reignited the tension. As the bailiff stepped forward cautiously, Thor issued another warning bark, teeth bared as he tracked the stranger's movements. The stranger raised his hand slowly, signaling his companions to halt. His expression shifted, not to anger, but to something more calculating. The stranger's expression shifted, not to anger, but to something colder. Resignation. "This isn't over," he said calmly, each word weighted with threat. "You think this is about the dog? It's bigger. You'll see." He stepped back, that smirk returning, all ice, no warmth. "For now, I'll leave. But he belongs to us, Nathan. We'll be back." Nathan's fingers tightened in Thor's fur. "He belongs to no one but me," he said, voice cracking with something raw beneath the steel. "You want him? You'll have to take us both." A beat. The stranger's mask slipped, just for a second, revealing something almost like respect before the cold calculation returned. Without another word, he turned, his shadowy companions melting into the hallway behind him. The courtroom exhaled all at once. Spectators clung to each other, some weeping openly. The judge's gavel slipped from shaking fingers as he whispered, "Court, adjourned." Nathan didn't hear. His world had narrowed to the warm weight against his leg, to the trust in those dark eyes looking up at him. His hands, battle-trained and steady, trembled as they cradled Thor's face. "You brave, brilliant boy," he choked out, forehead pressing against Thor's. The dog's tail thumped once, quiet, certain. Outside, the threat loomed. The fight wasn't over. But here, in this moment, with Thor's breath warm against his cheek and their hearts beating the same frantic rhythm, Nathan let himself believe what he'd known since that first minefield in Kabul. Some souls find each other across lifetimes. Some bonds outlast wars. And this? This was worth dying for.